At Christmas Mass, my billionaire son whispered, "Did you get your $9K allowance?" I thought he was joking until my daughter-in-law went pale. The choir's carol faltered in my ears as I gripped the packet tighter. The timer above the lectern ticked down, each second louder than the last. My son smirked, certain I wouldn't dare open what I carried. But when his wife's eyes locked on the sealed envelope, her knuckles whitened on the pew. She knew exactly what was inside and why I'd chosen tonight to read it aloud. He says 9,000. My fridge says $32. The bulb rattled when the door swung open. Eggs, a heel of bread, one beer. I shut the fridge and wrote the number in my notebook with a pencil that leaves a dent even when the lead snaps. I'm not hungry, I told myself. I'm counting. I laid out my brown suit, brushed the shoulders, and smoothed the lapels. The jacket has carried weddings and funerals. It can carry tonight. I took the church program from the magnet on the stove, community meeting, December 29th, 7 p.m., folded it twice, and slipped it behind the notebook's first page. By late afternoon, I was walking through Desert Palms Country Club, all glass and poinsettias, and a piano with perfect manners. A server offered champagne. I kept my hand at my side. David likes ceilings higher than most people's hopes. Lauren met me on the terrace, her smile polished enough to see myself in. Brown suit again? It still fits the truth. Navigo to keep up. I keep ledgers. I'm not here to scold them, I'm here to watch. I count pantry cans like debts paid in silence. Inside, the MC warmed the room with charity words and holiday jokes. My name sat beside David's on the program. I walked the perimeter, noting placards, donor tree, a table stacked with Whitman family charity brochures. I made notes without stopping, names, titles, who shook which hand. Near a sconce, I took a quick photo of the gala invite and slipped the phone away. David brushed my shoulder on his way past. Cedar cologne, camera time. "Find you a seat, Dad," he said. "We're about to start the fun part. MX, fun has receipts." He grinned like I'd joined in and didn't slow. I took the aisle seat near the back so I could step out and write if I had to. Lauren passed behind me with a hand light on a board member's elbow, and the board member's laugh landed on my collar. Small thing, but small things have weight when they fall the same way. "Mr. Whitman?" The club photographer leaned in, tie a little too merry. "There'll be a father-son portrait after the toast. 10 minutes?" "After the toast," I said. "Great. We'll get you by the tree." He was already moving. They dimmed the lights a notch. A busser cleared a glass and left a ring of moisture that reflected the chandelier like a coin. I sketched that circle in the margin and wrote the word optics. The notebook doesn't care who claps. The MC slid into a set piece. "Tonight we're grateful for families who lift all boats," he said, and heads nodded like buoys. I loosened my jacket button. My hands were steady now. Observation is a kind of hunger. It keeps you lean and ready. David caught my eye and gave a conspirator's wink. I found my pencil. I wrote the moment down. Not because the number mattered yet, but because the act of writing does. It says, "You are here, the truth is here, and both can wait their turn." "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC said, voice bright as cutlery, "please welcome a man who embodies Phoenix." The room's attention swung to the stage like a door on oiled hinges. David stepped into the light. I closed the notebook, slid the church program to the top, and tucked the pencil into the spiral. The photographer's promise hummed, "After the toast," like a timer you can't see, but still feel counting down. I stayed angled toward the aisle, ready to stand and write what needed writing when the room got loud enough to drown a plain voice. "After the toast," the photographer had said, 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time when the truth is next up. The terrace heaters clicked and breathed, making little halos in the cold. I kept my hands in my pockets and watched the room assemble itself. Sequins, cufflinks, the sound of money trying to be casual. Lauren drifted over with a flute that matched her smile. "Tonight is about gratitude," she said. "A thank you should fit the truth. Difficult. Then be honest. My silence weighs more than my coat tonight." I adjusted the notebook in my inside pocket like a second spine and stepped back into the ballroom. The herald into jazz and servers formed a silver river at the wall. I walked the perimeter, reading the stage the way a carpenter reads studs through drywall. On a linened table, Whitman family charity brochures. My surname in a tasteful serif. I set one flat, took a quick photo, then stood a moment to write, brochure lists, note donors. Beecham R. Lawson, Denali Group. Stood by the curtain with the MC mouthing lines. He saw me and tapped his watch with a smile that meant nothing except that we were all on time for his story. I angled toward the aisle, tested the chair's wobble, and flipped the notebook open to a fresh tab I'd labeled earlier in pencil. Toast. Exact words. A waiter leaned down. Sir, Pinot or sparkling? Water's good. Photographed, then nodded, relieved to have solved me. Lauren swept past again with a hand on a board member's sleeve. Smile for David's thank you, she murmured without looking at me. A thank you should fit the truth, I repeated. She pretended not to hear and pressed the board member a little closer to the front. Glenn from the front desk paused by my seat. Mr. Whitman, the photographer, asked me to remind you, after the toast, a father-son shot. I heard. By the tree, she said, and moved on, already smiling at someone richer. I took the club's pocket schedule card from the program on my lap. Closing remarks, 9:15. I turned the card over and slid it into the notebook to mark the page. A timer and cardstock. I wrote, 9:15, after, and capped the pencil with my thumbnail. The pencil had teeth marks from other nights when I didn't speak. David's investors arrived in knots, each knot anchored by a woman who understood table placement. A few donors shook my hand the way you pat a dog you don't want to follow you. Your boy's quite the star, one said. I told him to check his joists, I said. Pardon? Nothing. Nice evening. Plunge found me again, always in motion. Eat you by the aisle so you don't have to climb over anyone. Uninterrupted. I chose the aisle. Good, then do us proud. Bring the receipts. Coazon, her smile thinned. Don't do that. Do what? Ask for one? You know what I mean. I do. That's why I'm writing. The MC did his warm-up patter, families who lift all boats, and people laughed at the idea that any of them had ever been in a boat they didn't own. I slid the church program between the notebook's pages so the words, December 29th, 7 p.m., peaked like a thumb. The countdown didn't care about chandeliers. Near me, two guests whispered about a new subdivision David had pre-sold. 14 months, start to finish, one said. Klinkle, permits wrapped in a bow, the other said. Novamente, his father, must be proud. I kept my face still and wrote a line I've learned to trust. Pride requires facts. Onto the step, practicing his own applause. He tossed me a wink, the same one he used when he was 12, and asked for the keys. I lowered my eyes to the paper so the moment would land somewhere that wasn't my chest. Takerin returned a final time, touching my shoulder as if my jacket were a switch she could flip. Whatever David says, just nod. Name a deposit and I'll nod. You're not understanding the structure. I understand balances. The quartet stopped. The lights softened a degree. The MC raised his hand, and the room sighed into quiet, like a theater waiting for the first line. I set the pencil at the top of the page and squared the church program to the edge. For a second, I saw the pantry light from this afternoon, the eggs, the heel of bread, the one beer, and it steadied me more than the water ever could. The MC smiled toward the stage. And now, he said, voice bright as cutlery, a special family gratitude moment. The MC lifted his hand and the room quieted like a lid settling on a pot. David took the stage as if it had been built to his stride, one hand to the mic, the other sweeping the room he already owned. Tonight, he said, I honor my father. And the applause came fast, practiced. I give him $9,000 every month, so he lives in comfort. Laughter, relief, approval, like he'd tipped a waiter big and wanted the dining room to know. It landed in my chest with a cold click. I opened my notebook and wrote it exactly, each word in its own corner of the page so it couldn't wriggle free later. I did not stand. I did not wave. I let the noise pass over me like a hot wind. Isn't that right, Dad? He added, head tilted, the spotlight grazing the aisle. I rose halfway and the clapping got louder as if applause were a leash. Lauren lifted her glass and tapped the rim, tink, 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 like a metronome for manners. He's shy about generosity, she sang to laughter. My mouth closed. I sat. Humiliation is a receipt. I'll file it. When the song cut from jazz to a holiday hymn, I slipped to the back hallway with my notebook. The carpet swallowed my steps. The stage speakers muffled into a polite blur. I bent the program in half, underlined D229, community meeting 7 p.m., and slid it over the current page like a visor. Footsteps behind me. David. Cedar cologne and a breath that wanted to be a laugh. "Play along, Dad," he said quietly. "Don't make this hard. Name a single deposit." "Not here, then nowhere." He smiled like he'd forgiven me for being old. "We'll talk," he said, and turned his shoulders back toward the cheer. Lauren appeared at the hallway mouth, as if the wall had produced her. "Enjoy the attention," she said, smile cool. "You wore your best. It fits the truth." She tilted her head, listening to the room. "You do like to spoil a moment. I prefer to measure it." She raised her glass again, tink, for no one in particular, and followed the light. I hit record on my phone and spoke a flat memo to myself. David publicly declared a monthly allowance of $9,000. I have received no such deposits. Exact wording captured in the notebook. I ended the memo and wrote the time in the margin without numbers. Just a small mark where the page met the spiral. A habit from when I used to mark studs behind drywall. Pressure here, hold there. Didn't know brushed past and said, "That was beautiful," without stopping. I wrote the louder the clap, the softer the proof, and let the pencil rest. A buzz in my pocket. A text from a number I hadn't saved. A stage photo. Me in the far background. David mid-sweep, the lights turning everyone into softer people. "You should have seen your face," the caption read. I saved the image to a folder I'd already named Toast and replied with a single word. Received. Peacefully. I slipped back inside long enough to be seen clapping at someone else's announcement. Community scholarships, warm words. I leaned to a waiter. "May I step out?" He nodded like I'd asked his permission to breathe. In the side corridor, the air settled. The sound of the dishwasher down the service hall ticked, metal on metal. I copied a few donor names from the brochure I'd pocketed, and then I flipped to a clean tab and wrote it in block letters, 9K claim. I boxed it twice. The pencil point broke. I turned it and pressed with the flat. The dent was enough. Position's voice swelled for the final toast. I could picture David bowing in that modest way that still takes the whole room with it. I didn't go back in. I stood under a sconce and let the light fill the notebook's gutter. I breathed until my shoulders dropped. My phone buzzed again. Another message. No name. "Don't embarrass the family again." Stabilized scanner gave a tidy beep that sounded like permission. I spread my notebook on the wood and turned a fresh tab. "Invoked 2 lanes," Ava said in my ear. "Lane A, CPA/charity. Preservation letters today. Responses by the 27th. Lane B, bank manager memo. Request first thing when branches open." "Straight lines," I said. "Talk. And George, Arizona's one party. If he volunteers anything record, keep your questions simple. No traps. Truth doesn't need traps." Someone pushed a cart past, paperbacks shivering in a wire basket. I wrote in block letters, Lane A, CPA charity. Lane B, bank memo. I underlined each once, no flourish, just a groove the pencil could find again. Ava added, "Don't email the CPA letter request until you've got your phrasing clean. Please confirm beneficiary disbursements to George Whitman, that exact." Got it. We hung up. I stared at the empty space beneath those headings and felt the heat of last night cooling into shape. Cold pages, steady warmer anger. My phone buzzed again. "Lauren, enjoy the generous season. Send December's deposit receipt. You don't grasp structures. I grasp statements." Silence, then a breath that wanted to be a laugh. "Be kind to staff today," she said, and clicked off. A throat cleared beside me. A man from our neighborhood, always in a baseball cap even in winter, tilted his head. "George, right?" Outraged. "I saw a clip on Facebook. Thanksgiving? Looked like you taking an envelope." Unleashed. A paper with a verse. He shifted, eyes checking whether I'd cause a scene between beeps. "They said you're confused, conquered. I'm organized." He nodded like that could be a kind of confusion too. Well, Merry Christmas, he said, and pushed his card on. Rose's name popped up. Quick thing, she said over copier whir. Year-end filings are a mess this week, but if you need church ledger context for the board, I can help tomorrow. E. And George, if someone hands you a clarification packet, check for actual statements. I will. Punished. Nothing. The holiday desk was a two-person island, and I didn't need a trail of paper yet. I needed a map. I copied sample phrasing from Ava's email in tiny letters at the bottom of the page, so even I would have to squint. Then, I closed the notebook, slid it along the grain till it lined up square with the table edge, and stood. Back home, I set the notebook beside my monitor. The sticky note I'd written at dawn stared back in my block letters. CPA reply, ETA Destin 27, 5 p.m. I pressed the sticky flatter, the way I used to press shingles under a cap strip, simple, square, weatherproof. I opened a new email and typed the preservation language to the CPA office. No throat clearing, no preamble. One paragraph, 3 sentences, and a line that said, please reply by Destin 27, 5 p.m. I saved it to drafts for Ava to glance at remotely and didn't touch send. Blackmail, I pulled up the church's page and scrolled. There it was, the edited Thanksgiving clip I'd heard about on the card aisle. Same angle, harder cut. The thumbnail froze a moment of me accepting an envelope like I was reaching for cash instead of a verse. I hit play with the sound off and watched my own hands stripped of context. It's strange what a cut can do to a man's life. I didn't argue with the screen. I took a screenshot of the post and the account handle and dropped both into a folder labeled Smear. I didn't chase the handle. That would come later with better shoes. Phone again. Ava, language looks good, send. Then draft the bank memo request. Keep it neutral. Please issue a branch manager memo stating whether deposits matching the above claimed allowances were made to George Whitman's accounts. No bank jargon beyond memo. Nisled, I can ral, I can do. Unfinisheder was quiet enough that I could hear the fridge cycle. I added a second tab to the notebook, wrote bank memo, request Monday, and sketched a tiny square beside it like a checkbox. I didn't check it. Monday would check itself if I showed up. Stabilize myself, one long look at the pantry. The eggs, the heel of bread, the single beer. None of those could answer an edited clip. Position, the CPA email. Then I typed out the bank memo request and saved that draft too. No numbers, no forms, not yet. The first nail you drive should be the one that holds the shape. The phone chimed again. A neighbor's group thread lit up with casserole emojis and a prayer for family peace. I muted it and pressed the notebook's new tabs flat with 2 fingers. I returned to the screenshot folder and renamed the file so I could find it blind if I had to. I didn't tag or share. I don't play wind with flames. The sticky on the monitor caught the afternoon light. December 27th, 5 p.m. The time didn't smile or frown, it simply waited. I wrote one last line at the bottom of the page. Paper will be 2. And then I took one more screenshot, the post's URL bar, because whoever was pushing that clip had picked a time when lights and casseroles would keep decent people from asking questions. I saved it and closed the lid of my laptop like a carpenter checks a level and says, good enough to hold. Mina, the email subject line read, Letter Re Whitman Family Charity. I printed it and laid the single page flat on the tablecloth where the coffee stains looked like old maps. I set my phone beside it so the clock would live in the frame and took the shot straight down. No angle, no romance, just paper and time. I initialed the bottom corner, wrote today's date in small numbers, and slid the page into the light again in case the first photo blinked. It didn't. The pencil touched my notebook. CPA letter received, eye-level capture complete. Group text buzzed. Lauren had looped David in, airborne me. Letter says I benefit via family charity. Send the beneficiary ledger. David, clerical stuff. You're fine. Lauren, please stop stressing staff. Me, claims are free, ledgers cost. The phone cool. Paper doesn't blush. People will. Stabilize. A new email. Attached. Image of letter. Please confirm disbursements to George Whitman. I CC'd Ava. and hit send. Then, a 3-sentence montage. Scan save to a folder with today's date, duplicate to a thumb drive, a note in my notebook, copies made, Ava CC'd, chain intact. Calendar, I boxed December 29 and underlined it once. I set the letter beside the box like a label for the days between. The phone rang. Ava. Wilmington. You got it? Presumption. Eye level, clock in frame. Good. Keep everything neutral. If they call it an error, ask who supplied the beneficiary name. I plan to. Mail yours copy and wrote my initials smaller, the way I used to sign joist tags so the building inspector could match my hand to the work. I taped a thumbnail photo of the letter into the notebook and captioned it, Claim in ink, truth in numbers. David, separate. Dad, these are structures. It moved through different vehicles. A sit. That's not how. Neighborosexual. Name it. Silence. The sound of someone choosing optics over arithmetic. I poured water, sat, and read the letter a second time, line by line. It didn't promise me anything. It promised that my name was used to make the charity look warmer than it is. The letter was careful, like it had a lawyer peeking over its shoulder, but the sentence, beneficiary, George Whitman, sat there in plain type. A memory tried to get in, David at 20, signing his first loan while my hand rested over the paper steadying his, and I let it stop at the edge. History doesn't get to argue with a new receipt. I photographed the page again with the same clock visible. One cue is enough. You don't nail the same board twice unless it squeaks. A ping from the family thread. Lauren, please remember we're in a holiday week. Me, the pantry still counts days. Prejudices our thread to a PDF without scrolling and closed it. No need to chase 6 rabbits when one will eat the garden. Outside, a delivery van backfired and a dog protested. Inside, silence and paper. The letter face up, my initials small, the clock captured, the notebook open to a tab that now looked like a ledger rather than a diary. I wrote a single checkbox beside, read aloud if ledger absent. I left it unchecked. He phone buzzed again, Ava forwarding a short reply from the CPA assistant. I opened it and felt the room change by a degree. Beneficiary details come from client records. I read it twice. Then I printed nothing and wrote the sentence into my notebook by hand so I could feel it travel from the page into the pencil and back again. Credit Union, 2004. The desk smelled like toner and nervous sweat. David's hands shook above the signature line, mine didn't. Just a cosign, Dad, he said, 20 and blazing with plans. It's a roof, not a rocket, I told him, and laid my pen down first so he could see steady. The loan officer slid the papers across. I signed where the ink would hold him up if he slipped. Outside, heat came off the parking lot like a warning. He grinned, keys already in his palm. I watched the car door shut and felt the invoice of my life notch one line deeper. I fed his first roof with my last dollars. The present came back with the hymn's last chord. St. Matthew's smelled of pine and coffee. Service let out in general traffic. I edged toward the bulletin board. Community meeting. December 29, 7 p.m. 3-minute statements. Somebody had pushed a fresh tack. The pin made a small click that sounded like a clock. David materialized at the end of the pew, cedar cologne and tight jaw. Please don't do this here, he said. Do what? Ask for a receipt? Upsetting people. 8 minutes are soothing. Stop, Dad. Name a deposit. Lauren hovered at his shoulder, eyes sweeping for witnesses. I kept my voice low. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to remember accurately. Couple from our small group scrolled their phones near the coat rack. George, the woman said, cautious, is this you from Thanksgiving? She tilted the screen. The edited clip, me taking an envelope, sound off. May I photograph your screen? I asked. If it helps. Wastard, 1 second. I centered the frame so only the video and the uploader handle showed. No names, no thread. The shutter pipped. Thank you. What even is this? Her husband asked. Missing context, I said. I'll bring it on the 29th. Piano bench thunk from the choir room. As I turned, a deacon spouse intercepted with a smile that pinched. Mr. Whitman, best to keep family business private. I kept it private for years, I said. Ward Lauren like a baton pass. The board prefers harmony. The right notes, I said. A Folkreich thinned. We don't want a scene. Familiarity. Then let the facts speak, I said, and stepped aside. Flames came again, voice lowered, stabilized. And you doozed, he said. I'm organized. You don't understand vehicles. Enmant, understand empty, Lauren tightened. We will handle it privately. Public lies get public receipts. Pastor Elaine approached. Soft shoes, steady face. George, she said, private tone in a public place. Bring whatever you want the board to see on the 29th. 3 minutes, facts only. I'll be brief and exact. She touched the bulletin board edge as if to square it. Good, we'll keep order. I walked the hallway once to let my blood catch up to my bones. The notebook opened to a fresh page. At the top I printed, loan, 2004, cosign proof to retrieve. The line looked like a Joyce note. Where to look, what to bring. Below it I wrote the uploader handle from the congregant's phone. I didn't chase it, I wrote it so it couldn't wander. Outside the narthex glass, evening leaned in. People hugged and hurried, and didn't meet my eyes. That's fine. Facts don't need company to stand up. Breached toward the door with Lauren, their heads together. I waited in the shadow of the hymn board and counted 3 breaths. I stepped toward the exit to thank Pastor, and that's when I heard it. Lauren's voice, barely a thread aimed at a deacon. Capacity, guardianship. The words hung in the air like a frost that doesn't show on camera. Mr. Rahim's office had a glass wall and a patient clock. I laid the printouts on his desk, each $9,000 check image made out to L. Torres Holdings, and kept my voice level. I'm told I receive $9,000 a month, I said. My balance says otherwise. I'd like a branch manager's memo confirming whether deposits matching those claims hit my accounts. Demolished him, folded his hands. You're the customer of record. We can issue a manager memo that states what is or isn't in your statements. No third-party details. That's all I need, a yes or a no where the truth lives. He glanced at the checks. These are not to you. I noticed. My phone buzzed. I let it. Rahim typed, printed a single-page request, and reached for a rubber stamp. Thump. The bank's date stamp landed in the top corner like a small verdict. Memo should be ready by noon on the 29th, he said. Wilmington a tidy circle around that line. I'll be here. The phone kept buzzing. I stepped into the hallway to answer. Cease and desist, David said, voice cooled. Final warning. Finals come with dates, send one. I'm organized. You won't like where trails lead. Subjected is real, it leaves a trail. Like cedar, he hung up. Pelos. Back in the office, Rahim slid the request form to me. We'll verify against your account history and issue the memo accordingly. No documents today. You'll receive it when it's complete. Boy stands up, so do I. He nodded, not unkind. We'll see you then. Windshield ucked the form flat in my folder so the stamp wouldn't smudge and wrote a tab in my notebook. Manager memo, ETA 12 o'clock, 12:29. The letters looked steadier than my hand felt. Ava's office was 2 blocks and 1 stoplight away. She had a small conference table and a whiteboard that had already met its share of bad news. She pointed to a chair, then to a thin engagement letter. You ready to make this official? She asked. Yes. We signed 1 sentence each. She capped the pen. Next, I'll send preservation notices to the charity and to your son's counsel. Keep your chain clean. No numbers unless they flip leverage. They will. Sharpen the check images, adjusting her glasses. L. Torres Holdings is Lauren's maiden name, yes? Yes. Emo do the heavy lift. Her phone pinged, so did mine. I glanced down, group text. Lauren this time. Shuffled harassing staff, she wrote. You don't grasp structures. Name the deposit, I replied. Ava scratched 2 bullet points on her pad. Timeline's against them now. The memo lands before the meeting. You speak with facts. Swallow bring what speaks. We ran a 1-breath montage. Ava emailed the preservation notices. I scanned the request form and BCC'd myself. She added Rahim's direct line to the contact sheet. Then she tapped the page with my stamp again. Remember, one visible cue per chapter of your life. Tonight, it's that stamp. Cry our own overdecorate. Smiled. Good. I stepped out into the bright hallway and felt the day line up. The edited clip could sneer on 1,000 screens. The memo would ignore them all. A buzz from David again. I let it ride. Another ping. Lauren, separate. A link previewed on my phone. Capacity screening intake with bubbles promising stress-free support. I didn't click. I took a screenshot of the preview only, wrote "Do not open" beside it in my notebook, and slid the phone face down. The stamp in my folder didn't care who texted. Step one hand on the copier lid and one eye on the hallway. If you're going to speak tomorrow, she said, you'll want the benevolence summary. No line to you. I can't hand it to you yet, but I can point. I'll take the point and bring my own paper. Her mouth tugged at a smile. Pastor's keeping the meeting fair. 3 minutes, tight lights. Buzzed. Lauren, take down the rumors. Post the deposits, and I will. You're embarrassing David. Receipts won't blush. It with a name. Teen who shot the Thanksgiving video, DM him, he's solid. Find the hallway between the office and the fellowship hall and sent the message. The reply came fast, a link and a line. Original file, no cuts. Avon's site, I typed. Yeah, I'm just tired of adults lying, came back. Please, I didn't argue with the truth when it showed up on time. In my trailer that evening, I opened the link and watched the same moment the clip had twisted. The envelope. In the original, a kid's voice reads a verse before it reaches my hands. No punch-in, no cut, just context. I downloaded the file, wrote the file name in my notebook, then the page title, Raw versus Edited, Metadata Plan. I let my thumb rest on the margin to steady the next line and printed a single hash, letters and numbers that would stay put when people didn't. I repeated it aloud once and wrote, copied to backup drive, beneath it. 1 Q only. Peeked a screenshot of the DM with the link and the teen's handle, then forwarded the file to Ava with a plain subject line, Raw throw giving. My montage was brief. Duplicate to a second USB, drop both into a zip bag, date it, and set it under the lamp. Paperwork that breathes. Shortcomings. Buzzed again. Lauren. Why are you harassing children now? He's a witness to his own work. You really want to humiliate us? I want the whole clip. Silence, and then the typing dots that never resolved. I called Rosa once more. If the benevolence summary is clean, can you confirm tomorrow? On the record with Pastor present, she said. George, be ready for a friendly clarification packet. Glossy. No statements. I'll bring eyes. I kept the video open and dragged the playhead back and forth across the moment the envelope crossed the frame. The original had imperfections, a shaky breath, a squeak from the fellowship hall card, someone laughing at a joke I couldn't hear. Imperfections are where the truth hides. Truth knocks softly, but it keeps knocking. My phone vibrated with a new number. Prestige team, the text read. Full house tomorrow. Good, I wrote back. Truth likes a crowd. Doors at 6:30, line forms early. I flipped my notebook to the front where the sticky waited. Memo noon, meeting 7. I underlined noon once, the bank at lunch, the board at night. A day rigged like scaffolding. If one brace slips, you hold the next with your hands. Tay stood, stretched the small of my back, and watched the desert evening trade color for dark through the trailer blinds. The fridge clicked on and hummed. I laid the notebook flat, checked the hash one more time against the file label, and closed the cover. No more numbers tonight. Tyside carried footsteps and a laugh that wasn't for me. I poured water, touched the bag drives, and let my shoulders settle. The door, a thin shuff against linoleum. I looked down. A plain envelope had been pushed under, no return address. I waited, listening to the retreating steps. The porch stayed quiet. Tighten her under the flap and stopped. Not tonight. I slid the whole thing into a plastic sleeve and wrote the time across the top of the sleeve instead. I could read in the morning with clean hands. On the front, in block print, 4 words. Do not speak on the 29th. I tucked it behind the notebook's back cover and logged the time in the margin. Then I turned off the lamp and let the trailer return to the sounds of the fridge and the road and my own breath counting down. I set the charger block on the end table, cable draped like any other night. The tiny lens looked through a notch I'd filed months ago. To watch a grandbaby nap, tonight it watched the couch. The wall clock over the kitchenette clicked its patient second hand. I left the notebook open on the coffee table and wrote in the margin, tomorrow. Memo, noon. To church 7. A knock, David's rhythm. 2 short, 1 long. I opened the door and stepped back so he'd have to pass the charger's eye to reach me. Kinetic the room like a realtor. You've made this very messy. A bank, name a deposit, stop with the ultimatums. He sat, choosing the cushion the camera favored. It's handled through structures. Trusts, shells, pick a word, then pick a bank. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice low and practiced. We arrange things in your name, that's enough. The clock's second hand moved through the top of the hour as he said it. I didn't look at the charger, I kept my eyes on his mouth. It isn't enough, I said. The memo will say so. Categorize don't bring this to church, he said. You'll look confused. I brought context. Dad, he tried for warmth that came out as a draft. Let me handle your affairs. You already did. If you force this into a spectacle, I'll have to protect the family. Protect it with statements. He stood. You won't like the next part. I rarely like lies, even when they're polite. Stared at the clock, then at my notebook. You're not recording this. I'm remembering it, I said. He left without slamming the door. I locked the deadbolt, then sat, hands on my knees until the tremor passed. Fear visits, I set a chair for truth instead. I lifted the charger, pressed stop, and watched the thumbnail blossom on the screen. 1 sentence, clean. We arrange things in your name. The clock sits over his shoulder like a witness. Montage, 1 breath. I exported the clip, noted file name and hash in the notebook under a new red tab. Clip AV. Duplicated to a labeled USB. Sent an audio-only backup to Ava with the subject line we'd agreed on months ago for moments exactly like this. Official. I opened to the building manager, clipboard in one hand. Evening, got a noise complaint earlier. From which unit? Can't say, thin walls. He peered past me, eyes grazing the charger and landing on the clock. Everything all right? Quiet here. Keep it down tonight. A pause that pretended to be friendly. Big day tomorrow for some folks, I hear. Doors at 6:30, I said. Lines form early. He cleared his throat and retreated down the hall, shoes soft in the fluorescent hum. I closed the door and counted 3 breaths with the notebook open. I wrote out the sentence exactly as David had said it, each word spaced like a stud. We/arranged/things/in/your/name. I didn't underline it. Wood holds nails without paint. The phone buzzed, an unknown number. Agenda item may be pulled. Home, I stared at it long enough to feel my jaw set. Then another vibration. Pastor Elaine. Creert stays, bring what you have. Ankles, I tapped the notebook page, felt the paper's tooth under my fingertip, and left the red tab open like a flag. I met me at the glass door right before lunch, a single page in his hand. He set it on the desk without flourish. The bank's date stamp sat in the corner like a square, quiet bell. This is your manager's memo, he said. It confirms what did and didn't hit your accounts. V-way, the line that mattered. My name, my account, no deposits matching claimed allowances. I didn't smile. I let the sentence seat itself. Thank you, I said. We don't speak to third parties, he added, gentle boundary, but you may show this where you need to. That's where I'm headed. He slid a clear sleeve across. I eased the memo inside so the stamp stayed visible, then wrote in my notebook, Exhibit A, bank memo, branch stamp. A steady voice can be louder than a shout. My phone lit with David's name on the sidewalk. I answered. Said, Emshin. He hence. We'll talk privately. Daylight is my privacy. Tragedies, a contained storm. Don't bring that thing to church. Bring a deposit, and I won't have to. Click. Ava's office was bright and square. She cleared a space at the table like she was setting a plank for a cut. Let me see it, she said. I slid the sleeve across. She read the memo once, lips pressed, then nodded. Good. We route this formally and keep the chain short. Rakid Rosa popped in on speaker.
Ledger summary shows no line to George.
She said.
I'll attest tonight if needed.
Thank you, I said. Ava tapped her keyboard.
One breath montage and we're done. Scan, route, preserve.
And she did it in a breath. Scan, BCC me, attach charity filing excerpt to the same thread, preservation notice to the board and to opposing counsel. Subject lines plain as lumber.
There,
She said.
now they can't say they weren't told.
I set my phone on the table and opened my notebook to a page labeled in block letters. Lectern, 90-second read, A, E. A, I said, touching the memo slot. B, the checks to L. Torres Holdings. C, the CPA letter line. D, raw versus edited timestamps. E, the admission pull quote.
Crier stays that way.
Ava said.
Memo first because judges and church boards both like banks.
My phone buzzed again. Lauren's text, not to me directly, but to the family thread. Our generosity is being mischaracterized online, with a link to a post from a PR contact. A static graphic, no numbers, no statements. I replied with 4 words. Name the deposit, David. Ginjawa watched my face instead of the screen. They'll try to punch air, she said. Don't swing back at air. Read facts. I've framed worse walls, I said, plumb and level. She smiled without softening. Set your alarm. Commentarios, I pulled up the clock app and set doors, 6:30 p.m. I took a photo of the screen and dropped it into the notebook pocket. I wrote underneath, Community meeting 7, 3 minutes. Another ping, Rosa again, quick. FYI, there's chatter about agenda changes. Pastor says statements stay. I said, I'm better live. We walked the packet once more like a fire drill. Ava placed the memo on top and tapped it twice. You start with A and you finish before the red light. If they interrupt, you ask the deacon for time to complete the thought. Do not wander. Straight cut, I said. And if someone waves a glossary at you, structures, vehicles, trusts, you say, show the statement. Then you stop talking. I nodded. The craft in restraint is harder than the craft in building. My hands remembered both. On the way back to my trailer, I stopped at a crosswalk and breathed until the light found me. In the living room, I laid the packet on the table and squared the corners. The lectern page sat on top. I read the first line aloud just to feel the words move air. A, the bank memo. Freeze's phone rang again, David. I let it. Voicemail would keep him from collecting a performance. I thumbed the practice timer on my watch and read the list under breath twice. 90 seconds each. No poetry, just Joyce. Memo, checks, letter, timestamps, admission. I taped the memo's photocopy thumbnail into the notebook margin next to A, so my eye couldn't slip when my mouth was busy. Reflex told me to check the pantry. I did, then closed the door gently. Not because food was different today, but because the room was. I sat and wrote one more line at the bottom of the page. Packet offered to board at 7 o'clock, copy retained. Clang lit with a PR post from Lauren's contact, setting the record straight about family care. The graphic smiled, sterile. I watched the comments pile like leaves and didn't touch any of them. Message slid in from a deacon. Keep it factual. The room will be full. Ava slid a fresh cover sheet across the conference table. Exhibits A through E, she said, tapping each line with her pen. Initial here, second set sealed, witnesses reachable. Alam Lauren, I took it. We're removing your item, too inflammatory. Then the truth will spill in the hall. Don't you dare. PSG statements. Bly. She hung up. Rosa's voice came from the doorway, breath quick from the walk. Ledger's ready. I'm on site till 8. Thank you, I said. Ava pointed her pen at the whiteboard. Doors 6:30, statement 7. Odd our enemy if we stack this clean. Unacceptable. Hands steady when paper stacks right. We moved to the church copy room, the copier word. I laid Exhibit A, bank memo, on top, then B, checks to L. Torres Holdings. C, CPA letter line. D, raw versus edited timestamps. E, admission pull quote. Ava clipped the stack and squared the corners with a carpenter's palm. Novamanitness lanes? She asked. Rosa's here. Rahim reachable by phone? I said. Ava wrote Mr. Rahim. Direct line on the cover and circled it. Write it in your notebook, too. I pasted a printout of lectern order, A to E, into my notebook and copied those two numbers under it. The page looked like a service diagram. Power from A feeds B through E. The lights flickered. We both looked up. Take. Ava. Paper first, power later. Copy that. She held the cover sheet so the copy room wall clock sat in frame over our shoulders. Initials, then photo. I initialed, she initialed. She lifted her phone and took a single straight shot. No angles, no zoom. One visible cue is enough. Her phone buzzed. Pastor Elaine. Ava put it on speaker for one line. Pastor. Public statements remain. Ava. Understood. Distrust. The speaker clicked off. I wrote Rosa. On site in Rahim. Confirmed by phone on the cover. Then I mirrored those lines in my notebook beneath the pasted lectern order. Change short. Names plain. My phone again. Lauren. You're not going to humiliate us, she said. Truth will travel, agenda or not. Consider your capacity. Consider a deposit. Ava slid me the second set of exhibits in a large envelope. Seal and sign across the flap. I did. She stamped the outside with the church date stamp and wrote, Copy retained by speaker. She tapped the packet on the table. Two firm taps, like checking a board is seated. Rosa leaned in the door. Usher says line already forming. Good, I said. Facts like an audience. Ava clicked her pen closed. Packet is live. If they pass you a clarification packet with no statements, refuse to be educated. I'll ask for receipts. We walked the chain one last time. A through E in order, names and numbers on the cover, mirror and notebook, sealed duplicate in the envelope, Rahim on call if the room needs ears. I slid the packet into my brief folder and pressed the flap flat. The weight felt right. No drama, just density. A text pinged. Unknown number with a PDF attachment. Guardianship petition. Draft. No court stamp. No case number. Just threat dressing. I saved it without opening and looked at Ava. They brought paper. Then we'll bring ours, she said. The shipping store bell gave a tired jingle, and the clerk in the notary badge lifted his stamp like a little anvil. Name? He asked the teen beside me. Miguel Alvarez, the kid said, palms flat, voice steady. I filmed the Thanksgiving video, no edits. The clerk flipped his ledger, slid a form across. Sign here, state what you know. I'll witness. Miraculous wrote fast but clean. I watched his pen, not his face. Ink is courage if you hold the pen steady. ID? The clerk said. Miguel handed one over. The clerk nodded, lined up the stamp, and pressed. The seal bit the page with a dry thunk. He wrote my name into his ledger as the requester. I noted that line in my notebook without numbers, just a mark in the margin. My phone buzzed. Doors 6:30 p.m. The alarm I'd set earlier lit the screen, then went dark. Your turn, I told Rosa as she hurried in, winded from the church. She laid a single paragraph on the counter. Benevolence ledger shows no line to George Whitman for the year. The clerk glanced, checked her ID, and turned the stamp again. Thunk. The seal sat there like a reasonable weight. Rosa met my eyes. Pastor's already clearing the media desk for you, she said. We'll keep the mics honest. Flang. You. That clerk slid both page a quick phone photo for his file. I mirrored him. One shot each, straight down, stamp visible, nothing else. No angles, no art. Umming. Anything else? He asked. Patriotism. I slid a single line on a half sheet toward him. The checksum from last night's raw video. Attached to Mr. Alvarez's affidavit. Same stamp on the corner. He narrowed an eye, then shrugged. I can notarize that this is what you presented. He stamped the corner and initialed. I didn't add another number. One cue is enough. Outside in the heat that pretends to be evening, my phone buzzed again. David. Take last chance. Skip tonight, he said. Last chance, bring deposits. You want a war with your own name on the headline? I want the ledger to match the speech. He breathed hard through his nose. You always were stubborn. Stubborn is what you call steady when you'd rather I slipped. Lauren says you're not well. Bring proof or bring we cut across to St. Matthew's. The lobby hummed, ushers, programs, the faint squeak of a cart. Pastor Elaine waved us past the line to the media desk. 3 minutes, she said, and if they cut sound, I'll point. Finish your list. I spread the packet, A through E, beside the mixer board and set the affidavits on top for a moment like a promise. The teen stood a respectful step behind me, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. He'd done his part. Rosa checked her watch and nodded at the sanctuary doors. "Give me those for copies?" the media volunteer asked. "Not these," I said. "Use the packet copies." We moved in a one-breath montage. Scans to Ava, subject lines plain, email to my own archive, the clerk's name and store written in the notebook so the stamp can find its home later. A text blink from an unknown. Agenda item is too contentious. Postponing is prudent. Another from Lauren landed on top. Kindly respect the board. I pocketed the phone and wrote 90 seconds. Don't wander in the notebook margin in block letters. The words thickened my spine more than any sermon. Miguel cleared his throat. "Do I have to talk?" "Negate," I said. "Your page will." Rosa touched the affidavits. "He's ready," she told Pastor. I looked at the seal on Miguel's page, then at Rosa's. You could feel the weight of both without touching them. Another buzz, David again, then nothing. He wanted a fight you couldn't measure. I'd brought measuring tools. "Any questions?" Pastor asked. "Only one," I said. "If the mic dies, where should I stand?" She smiled thinly. "Center aisle, project." An usher leaned in from the narthex, hand to his ear like a stage cue. "Heads up," he said quietly. Sound check was fussy. If they cut sound, project. Unreliable funneled bodies and voices toward the doors, winter jackets brushing poinsettias in their foil sleeves. The sky held the last thin stripe of orange like a ruler. Lauren met me halfway down the stairs with a brochure-bright smile and a glossy packet in both hands. David stood one step higher, a shadow over her shoulder. "Let's clear this up," Lauren said, angling the packet so a bystander could see my name on the cover. "A simple clarification so we don't waste anyone's evening. A statement," I said. David's voice dropped. "We're trying to protect you. Sign this and we'll table the item." Furious me with deposits. A woman from the neighborhood, Mrs. Maria Ortiz, hovered 3 feet away, clutching her program against her chest. She offered a small nod, the kind of nod you give a man who's about to choose. Lauren tracked the nod and sharpened her smile. "George, this just acknowledges that family generosity is sometimes mischaracterized online." "Family generosity has bank lines," I said. David leaned down a step to close the height. "Capacity matters," he murmured. "If you insist on embarrassing yourself, there are processes to keep you safe." "Guardianship by threat is not care," I said. A deacon in a navy blazer drifted close, pretending to check the door glass. "We may pull the agenda item if it becomes disruptive," he said to no one in particular, but loud enough for the steps to hear. Lauren turned the packet to a last page with 3 signature lines. "Just sign here, and we can keep the meeting constructive." I opened my coat pocket, slipped my thumbs inside the coat lining, then pulled the document out and signed my name in a quick, careful motion. David, a quick, careful motion in his own. The deacon closed the door. Lauren nudged George, who had taken her arm. "I'm glad we reached a compromise." George shrugged, one shoulder up. "It's too bad it's a compromise we're going to lose." The room fell quiet for a beat. I had to step in, find the right words. I cleared my throat. "We are one of many people here." Lauren let her eyes trail across the room. "We have seen the community as an open resource, ready to share. And so far, our work is working. The family who's in crisis with us, and we with them, has been moving forward." Lauren reached up for something, not the hand that held the pen, but the hand holding the document. She touched the side of the document, as though that would magically erase its contents. George reached for the document, held it, then slid the pen back pocket, slipped my thumb on the notebook's ribbon, and set the phone to record. I held it at my chest, not hiding, not performing. I looked at Mrs. Ortiz, then at David. "No signature without a statement," I said. Don't be dramatic, Lauren said. A clarification helps everyone. Show deposits, and I'll sign the truth about them. David's jaw worked. We arranged structures, he said, as if the word could do the lifting tonight. Name a bank, I said. Name a deposit. He glanced toward the foyer where the ushers were lining programs like shingles. This is a church, he said softly. Don't make a scene. I'm here to finish a list, I said. You are the scene. The first bell in the tower struck, round and unhurried. Lauren's smile didn't move, but her eyes did. George, she said, please sign. I raised the phone a notch so my mouth would be clean on the audio. This is George Whitman. It is 6:45 p.m. I am refusing to sign a clarification or recantation because it contains no statements. Mrs. Maria Ortiz is present and hears me refuse. I turned my head so the microphone would catch the second bell rolling out over the parking lot. I will speak at 7. Mrs. Ortiz startled at her own name and then squared herself. I hear him, she said. Lauren's smile cracked. You're making yourself smaller, she hissed, the packet trembling between her fingers. I won't sign myself smaller tonight. David slid one hand toward the packet as if to shield it from air. Last chance, he said. Take the off-ramp. Flooded receipts are the road, I said. You built your lane. I built mine. From inside, an usher leaned on the jamb and cupped his hand. Doors in 15, he called. Lauren pushed the packet an inch closer, then pulled it back like it burned. You're confused, she said. I'm organized, I said, and tapped my pocket once so the phone would mark it. I nodded to Mrs. Ortiz, who nodded back like a witness who'd learned her line. The bells counted us forward. One of the poinsettias lost a leaf, and it slid down the step, red on concrete. David looked everywhere but at me. Lauren folded the glossy once, then again, like she could make the night smaller by creasing it. I pocketed the phone, the ribbon against my thumb, and wrote one line after I stepped aside to the rail. Refusal recorded, 6:45. Then I faced the door. Doors in 15, the usher called again, louder, and the line bunched like a wave. The foyer breathed hot and sweet, coffee and winter coats and the last whisper of perfume. Ushers stacked programs like shingles. I stood at the threshold with my packet under one arm and the notebook pressed against my ribs, finger resting on the lectern AE page so my place couldn't be jostled loose. Deflate moved through the pews ahead of the crowd, laying PR handouts on seats. Family generosity mischaracterized, smile firm, eyes busy. David trailed, speaking softly to a deacon, two hands making a chopping motion that meant, reorder. The deacon nodded the way people nod when they've already decided to be helpful to the loudest man. Pastor Elaine intercepted them at the aisle. Public statements remain, she said. Then move them up, David murmured. 2 minutes max. 3 minutes, Pastor replied. And order stands. He spotted me and crossed the aisle. 2 minutes max, he said under his breath. 3 facts, then silence. In question. To speak the truth is intact. An usher held a hand to his earpiece. Mic check, he called toward the front. The lectern timer glowed 180 in green. They can thin the microphone, they can't thin the facts. Rosa slid in beside the front pew and gave me a quick nod. Ready. A woman scooped up the handout from her seat and frowned, whispering to her neighbor. The page didn't have a single number on it, just careful sentences that asked to be believed on polish alone. Lauren glided back. We're simply ensuring no one is misled, she told me, keeping the smile. Gratitude doesn't need a script, I said. Then be brief, she answered. The deacon approached with an apologetic tilt. To keep the agenda flowing, we may resequence some items. You mean shorten public statements, I said. He lifted palms. We're all trying to serve the room. Serve it facts, I said. From the narthex, an usher. Doors now. The sanctuary sighed and took us in. I stepped into the front aisle, my packet under my arm, finger on the notebook's page edge, and set my stance where the center mic would see me first. David drifted close again, voice for me alone. You're going to look confused up there. Yo speaks clearly. People don't understand memos. They understand banks. Forging Elaine gave a small signal to the soundboard. A volunteer adjusted a knob, and the room filled with a thin hiss, like someone letting air out of a tire. Takes volumes delicate tonight, the deacon said, already halfway to the booth. The sanctuary clock above the choir loft clicked to 7. The timer on the lectern blinked once. 180. Lauren placed one more handout on the front pew, then turned, bright. "We're all on the same team," she said, for anyone listening. "Teams keep ledgers," I said, not loud, not soft. The deacon leaned over the lectern and tapped a button. The green numbers flickered. 180, 120. I watched his finger leave the plastic. He offered a thin smile. "Technical adjustment," he said. "We'll be efficient. Launderesting is honest only when numbers stay put," I said. Pastor Elaine stepped between us with the settled calm of a person who's shepherded more than one storm. 3 minutes for public statements," she said, eyes on the timer, then on me. "Finish your list." Rosa looked back over her shoulder, just once, and touched her wrist like a reminder, steady. David leaned in for one last pass. "Take." "Don't do this," he said. "Bring deposits," I said. The usher at the doors let the last latecomers in. A child's whisper skittered along a pew, the soundboard's hiss thinned, then steadied. I shifted my weight and felt the edges of paper settle against my palm. The timer blinked 120 again, as if to practice being smaller. I stayed where I was, centered on the aisle, packet under my arm, finger curved over A on the notebook page. The clock above the choir held at 7. Pastor Elaine nodded me to the center mic. I set my notebook on the lectern, ribbon tucked under A, and laid the packet beside it. The timer glowed small and green. I speak once, the paper speaks longer. "George Whitman," I said, 3 minutes, 5 exhibits, A through E. The deacon's hand hovered over a knob. Pastor said evenly, "Let him read." A. Bank memo. I lifted a single page so the first row could see the branch stamp. "From my bank manager, it confirms no deposits matching the claimed allowance hit my accounts." I kept the page steady, the stamp faced the room like a square bell. A hush took a step closer. B. Checks. I put A down, kept my voice flat. Images of checks for $9,000 each, not to me, but to L. Torres Holdings. That is my daughter-in-law's holding company. Same amount, different name. David stood, out of context. "Those are vehicles." "Show the statements," I said, eyes still on the page list. Murmurs. "Pastor, order please." CPA letter. Line reads, "Beneficiary details come from client records. My name was used to claim care." I let that sentence sit where the stamp could hear it. Smile flashed. "Generosity is being mischaracterized. Charity without statements is PR." Unleashed, people exhaled like they'd been holding something sharp. D. Raw versus edited. The viral clip cut out the verse. The original shows the verse before the envelope. The videographer is here. Morosa stepped to the aisle, hand raised. "Pastor, name for the record." "Yuki Miguel Alvarez," he said. I filmed it. No edits. "Forged, thank you." Unlock D. Admission line. I looked at my notebook, then back up. Audio from last night. "We arrange things in your name." That is my son's voice. Miguel flushed. "You recorded me? That's illegal." "Azona is one party," Pastor said, not looking away from the room. "Proceed." Flushing. Set both hands on the lectern. That's my list. A bank memo. B. Checks to a shell. C. A letter sourcing my name. D. The full clip. E. The admission. I ask for one thing only. If generosity is real, show the statements. Silence, then pew. Wood creaked as people leaned forward. Rosa rose from the front pew. "Ledgers show no line to George," she said, voice small but clean. Pastor nodded. Noted. David took one step into the aisle. The room made space around him, and then didn't. He looked at the handouts Lauren had placed, then at the memo stamp, then at me. He said, softer than the mic needed, "I..." The word fell off a ledge. He tried again. I said the allowance to look good. He swallowed. I used your name for warmth on paper. Lauren's jaw said, David? He shut his eyes like a man measuring a cut he doesn't want to make wrong again. When he opened them, he wasn't looking past me anymore. Clang. I'm sorry, he said into the mic. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't rehearsed. To the church. To you. I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't have filed it that way. I will fix it. A sound like air leaving a tight room moved across the pews. Someone whispered, Lord. Not as a prayer, but as a verdict. Lauren's face didn't crack this time, it froze. The deacon tapped the timer like it could help him. Pastor lifted a hand and the little green numbers stopped mattering. Mr. Whitman, she said, thank you for your clarity. Mr. Whitman, to David now. Your acknowledgement is on the record. Odded once, eyes down. He looked smaller without the words structures to stand behind. Pastor faced the crowd. Here is how we proceed. Written responses from the parties are due December 31st at 5 p.m. The board will review and communicate next steps at the January meeting. Public statements are closed for tonight. Slid the packet back under my arm and stepped away from the mic. The stamp on A didn't ring, but I could feel its weight. Windshield U of the year wore the same light as any other. I set the packet on my table, opened the notebook to enforcement, A to E follow-through, and drew 5 empty boxes. Ava called at 4:21. Spurg, she said. Waiting on his written correction, I said. Portal closes 5 p.m. Pastor's deadline holds. If they upload, capture the receipt screen. 1 image, timestamp visible. 1 queue only, I said. Exactly. Terms are what we agreed. 1. Amended filings admitting the misstatement. 2. Monthly statements to you by the last business day. 3. Guardianship withdrawn, no side letters. Confined a written retraction to the church, I said. Stabilized in the template, and tag and clicked a breath later. David. Dad, can we set privacy terms, no more public talk? Give me paper, I said. Amended filings, monthly statements, written retraction, guardianship gone, then privacy follows naturally. Filing statements feel intrusive. Goodwill isn't proof. Statements are. And we'll sign. Laura sent, you'll sign. He exhaled, uploading soon. Helicopters in pencil. Guardianship withdrawn. Their counsel had emailed at noon. Petition not filed, intent withdrawn. No stamps, no numbers, just air finally leaving a balloon. Ty Rosa texted a small thumbs up. Pastor will watch the portal clock. And I wrote her name in the notebook margin because people are part of chain of custody too. At 4:47, a draft pinged my inbox. David's apology paragraph stripped of stage lights. I overstated support. I attached my father's name to filings that did not reflect reality. I correct that here. I didn't grade the prose. Ava called again. She said, it's serviceable. Portal next. I opened the board's site and signed in. A gray bar at the top read responses due December 31st, 5 p.m. The cursor spun. I watched the second hand on the stove clock sweep and said, nothing to hurry it. Lauren rang. This is demeaning, she said. Truth is simple. We made it complicated, I said. David is trying. So am I. Silence, then, fine. It'll turn from gray to blue. I leaned in, hands flat on the table. Flashed in the corner as the page refreshed. Received. I didn't cheer. I took one screenshot of the board portal, just the word received and the timestamp, and dropped it into a folder named enforcement. I sent the image to Ava with the subject line, receipt in record. Then I set my pencil down like a tool that's done its job. Ava again, peacefully. Tee it, she said. Portal shows amended filings attached, your address on monthly statements, and the church retraction letter queued to pastor by 5. Check 3 boxes, I said, and I did. Amended filings, monthly statements, retraction to church. The sound the pencil made against paper was small and final. David called once more. Realized. It's in, he said. I'll send the first statement, end of January. You'll send it the last business day of each month, I said. And you'll deliver the amended charity forms to the state within their window? Yes. Vanderbilt. Then we're done for tonight, Dari, he said, softer than the line needed. I heard you at the mic, I said. Now I'll see you on paper. Tana, pastor's email slid in at 5:02. Receipt acknowledged board has your correction. Minutes will reflect acceptance of response and new reporting condition for statements. I copied the sentence into my notebook below the boxes and drew a short line under it. Not an underline, just a beam. Placebes like a receipt, quiet, exact. I washed the one mug in the sink and set it on the rack. The room didn't change shape, it just breathed easier. On the notebook page, I added a last small line under the boxes. 80 follow-through complete. In Quanto on January 2, the church posted minutes, acceptance, correction logged, statements condition adopted. I didn't print them. I wrote minutes posted in the corner of the same page and closed the notebook on my hand for a moment, the way you close a toolbox after the last hinge fits. David texted, I'll send January's by the 31st. Currencies. I've set a reminder, I replied. Make it clean. Asbestos. I opened my phone's calendar and created a ping. Monthly statements check. January 1st, 9 a.m. The alert tone clicked into place like a latch. Locked around the trailer, same table, same chair, the packet squared and quiet under its clip. Outside, a new year waited with the indifference of a blank page. Inside, the board portal sat in my folder with 4:58 p.m. in the corner, and the pencil line below pastor's email dried without ceremony. I don't need anyone to clap. I need the statements to arrive. After the board's email, the trailer felt wider. Patience, not noise, got me here. Justice moves on paper, then people follow. The $9K allowance can stay in stories. My bank will speak each month. I slide the ribbon flat and close my notebook. The soft thud is enough. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Type 1 if you resonate with this story.